Hello, welcome, minions of the OCD land, once again to our weekly webinar. I'm going to speak in an accent tonight, sort of, maybe, and sound wizardly. I don't know why. Why not? What the heck? Anyway, hi, everyone. Once again, you're at our Wednesday night weekly webinar provided to you by NoCD. NoCD, a downloadable app that you may download for free. Live teletherapy sessions available through NoCD. Taking more and more insurances all the time. Getting through into more and more states all the time as well. Many of you jumping in on the chat already. Hello, chatters. Chitty, chitty, chatter, chatter. And please throw in your OCD questions into the chat. And I, as your wizard of NoCD, will work on answering whatever questions it is that you may have. Hey, there's our first one. How do I handle the backdoor spike in my R OCD? I'm still obsessing 24/7, but the absence of anxiety along with intrusive feelings makes it seem like I really don't love my boyfriend. And I'm terrified. I feel numb. This is always the fun and interesting question of treatment. Oh no, I'm no longer anxious about my intrusive thoughts. Does that therefore mean that I now love them and accept them and I want them to happen? Oh, this is horrible and awful. And yet, isn't that exactly what the goal of therapy was? To recognize that though one has an intrusive thought, one does not need to spend all that much time with the intrusive thought. That really is the goal of treatment. And yet, once it starts to happen, that you start to feel less concerned about those intrusive thoughts or images or urges, then OCD plays a trick on you. And the trick says, well, now that you don't feel so bad about that, that must actually mean that you like it, that you are a bad person, that you want that thing. Of course, nothing could be further from the truth, but it is what many people are very concerned about. So I would see it as a normal expression of obsessive compulsive disorder. But OCD is going to look at it as proof that now that we have maybe helped you to take away some of the anxiety you have about this thing, now you're more likely to do it because maybe, as OCD will tell you, maybe, just maybe, it was the very anxiety about the thing itself that prevented you from doing or experiencing all these bad or awful or horrible things. And now that the anxiety's gone, oh no, now I have no barriers to it. What if it happens now? So I hope that makes sense. All right, let's see what else we got. How do I stop thinking about my boyfriend if he loves me or loves me not? I'm so tired. Well, let me go to the board for a moment and write down theme number 1 that I figured would come for the evening. I'll be right back. All right. I wrote stop A up there, as in, do we really know how to stop a thought or a image or a urge? And the answer is no, we do not. So, as from a former Saturday Night Live skit, the question is moot, right? The question about how to stop thinking about something is not a question that we can answer. The question is more about, Can we get to a point about not caring if we think about something? Wouldn't that be much, much better? Right? Wouldn't that be a lovely and wonderful thing? Imagine for a moment, everyone, if you all had tinnitus or tinnitus, which I have, and for the rest of your life, you heard this. And on and on and on and on and on. Because that's what I hear all the time. So I could ask the question, how do I stop hearing that? The problem, of course, is there's no way to stop hearing that. I have tinnitus. I'm always going to hear that. So now what I have to do is I have to either keep asking the question, yeah, but how do I stop hearing that? Or I have to figure out how to live my life hearing that and being okay with the fact that I'm going to hear that for the rest of my life. Which one should I go for? Should I continue to ask why I'm hearing this and continue to ask who can make it stop, though nobody knows how to do that? Or ought I just work on figuring out how can I live with hearing that sound? So what I've had to do for the last 20 years that I've had that sound going on, and it has been that long, is I've learned how to live with it. It's pretty loud right now because I'm talking about it, but in a couple of minutes, it's going to fade into the background, and I'm really not going to hear it all that much whatsoever. But once I bring it back into conscious awareness and start thinking, yeah, but how do I make it go away? It's going to be very loud again. And then I'm going to be stuck again with hearing it. Right? It is the ticking clock in your home. If any of you have a very loud clock in your home, there probably comes a point where you don't hear it ticking anymore, even though it is. And then a friend or somebody comes over and they're like, man, that is a loud clock. And suddenly you hear it ticking again. Now, here's the thing. You were always hearing it ticking. You just weren't paying any attention to it. I grew up by O'Hare Airport. I had a plane over my parents' house every probably about 45 to minute and 15 all the time. People would come to visit and they would be like, good God, what's with the planes? And we'd all be like, is there a plane? Oh yeah, I guess there's a plane. We were so used to them that they barely even registered anymore. It was just part of our life. It is what was. So I want all of you tonight, before you throw a question out, pause for a moment. Because if you write, how do I stop thinking about or having an image of or having the urge to, my response is going to be, don't know. Not the goal of therapy either. It's to learn how to live with the fact that it's there and not care about it. That's where we're really going. Okay. My OCD makes me feel like I'm losing my identity. I don't know how I'm supposed to respond to this. Well, that sounds like a very OCD thing to do, to cause you to think over and over again and what if everything, as in, what if I'm suddenly not the person I think I am? Or what if I'm not good enough? Or what if I'm not right? Or what if I do something wrong? Or what if, or what if? Now, of course, once OCD grabs onto something, guess what that means? That you'll probably not, for a very long period of time, feel ever 100% confident about that thing. So be ready for the ride of not feeling confident about your identity for a while. But here's the good piece of that. You probably never were 100% confident in your identity, and you just didn't care. But now that OCD has brought it into awareness, suddenly OCD says, wait a minute. How can we move forward in life without having a 100% confidence in our identity? And then suddenly it's like, oh, crap. I got to really figure out my identity. Who am I? And what do I believe in? And what's true and what's real? And what do I stand for? And all these things. And there was a lot of time you just didn't give a crap about that. And that's the whole goal of being able to go back to something like that. But once OCD grabs onto something, it tells you it's unacceptable to not care about something. You must give 110% effort into trying to figure something out. Well, that's never going to happen. I don't know anybody who is 100% confident in their identity. Okay. The bar that OCD sets is impossible to meet. You're never going to meet the OCD bar. It's just never, ever, ever, ever going to happen. No one's ever had OCD and come to me and said, hey, by the way, this week I finally satisfied my OCD. And we're all good now. I don't even need therapy anymore because my OCD has finally said, nice job. You did it. All right. I can go now. You're good. Everything's great. You have perfectly clean things. You have discovered 100% who you are and what your identity is. You have absolute certainty that you haven't harmed anybody or molested any children or anything. So good on you. Congratulations. OCD out. I'm good. I now know that you're fine and everything's okay. That's never going to happen. It's not the way it works. My boyfriend did something that triggered my ROCD months ago and resulted in a lot of questioning and reassurance seeking. I feel like I finally figure out why it bothered me so much and feel an urgent need to tell him. I'm not sure why it is so important for him to know this information, and we've already talked the topic to death, so it seems like it might be a compulsion. Any advice? Well, it probably is a compulsion, and if you've kind of let it go and you've talked it to death already, there's probably not much reason to do any more conversations about it. Now, if you do get to a point of conversing about it, I want you to set something up with your boyfriend, and I want you and your boyfriend to do an agreement, which is your boyfriend will get a notebook out, and going forward, if you ever bring up anything related to ROCD issues and doubt about your relationship again, he will write that down. He will then write down his answer, and he will not talk to you about it. Okay. So if you're like, listen, I'm going to tell him anyway, which unfortunately, that's what a lot of people do. I think you need parameters. You need to say, all right, you're going to sit there for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever. Pick a time frame, no more than 15. I'm going to tell you what I need to tell you. And then I want you to instruct him. Do not answer me. Just acknowledge. Thank you. I appreciate hearing that. And then move on in your life and your relationship with each other. Because since you have talked the topic to death already, there's not a darn thing he's going to say that's going to be helpful to the situation. So also let him know that if you ever bring this up again, it will only be dealt with by writing it out in the notebook. And he will never converse this with you ever again in your relationship. Because otherwise, every time you talk about it, you're strengthening OCD, because every compulsion you do and every reassurance you get and every conversation about it that you have actually strengthens OCD, doesn't weaken it. Now, this is the interesting piece for a lot of people with OCD who think, yeah, but every time I talk about it, I get a little bit closer to figuring it out. Okay. But OCD has infinite levels. So even if you figure out level 1, it says, rah, nice job. Okay. Now level 2. And then you figure out level 2 and it goes, hey, all right, great. Now level 3. There's an infinite number of levels. You're never going to achieve what you want to achieve. OCD will never allow it, because if you achieved what you wanted to achieve, OCD would go away. And guess what? OCD does not want to go away. So it just ain't going to happen. Be a waste of time. Hope that helps. All righty. Let's see what we've got here. If I forgot something or don't remember what I was supposed to do, I feel like it's going to harm me or hurt me or make me feel bad, or I freak out about it, giving me anxiety or panic attacks. Well, a very typical kind of OCD where I feel like I have to know everything and be aware of everything going on. And if I forget something, it's always the worst case scenario. Worst case scenario stuff is just like the stuff that OCD loves. OCD is a big, big fan of the worst case scenario. No one's ever had OCD and walked in my office and said, it might be kind of bad, maybe. I don't know. It's always bad, awful, horrible, worst case scenario kinds of things. So just keep that in mind, that you would jump to, if you forgot something, that it would be the worst thing ever in the world if you were to do that, because that's exactly the way OCD takes it. OCD wouldn't make it anything other than the worst thing in the world. But I would just ask, how many things have you forgotten already and have actually turned out to be the worst case scenario? Probably not so many. So if that's the case, again, kind of a big waste of time. How do I deal with the fear of mental distraction contamination coming in many forms? I'm questioning everything I do or say and have somatic obsessions such as blinking and breathing and tongue posture. Well, obviously, those things maybe are distractions to you from other things that are going on. If I can focus on my blinking or breathing or the way my tongue is, and if I can get it all just right, then it'll make everything feel good and wonderful and great. But I don't know anyone who's ever come up with the right combination of blinking, breathing, and tongue posture to the point of now they've said, I've figured out the best way to live. A 3/4 pressure of the tongue on the back of the upper middle 3 teeth, while at the same time breathing at a 80% capacity and blinking rapidly, leads you to a feeling of euphoria that no one else in the world will ever be able to grasp. Or I do all these things to distract myself from the other things that I think might be really bad or horrible, like, contamination or something of that nature. So what do we want you to do? We want you to do ERP to the very things you're afraid of, like contamination. We want you to, get that contamination experience, that feeling, which could be physical, it could be emotional or whatever. And then the response prevention is not to do the cleansing ritual that you would normally do. And we want you to recognize that you can sit with that discomfort that you have. And you don't need to do these other things to distract yourself from the discomfort, because it turns out the more you do those distractions, the worse you feel over time. Once again, reminder, everyone, tonight's broadcast brought to you by the NoCD platform. NoCD, downloadable free app that you can get on the iOS or Google Play Store. Teletherapy available through NoCD, and we continue to get more and more states in there, as well as more and more insurance companies who cover our services as well. Lisa says, I feel like sometimes when I'm having a OCD episode, my thoughts are irrational. Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, I'd go with that. And I try not to give into them, but my OCD is telling me that it is real and to take it seriously. What do I do? Oh, there's another one. Hold on. Back to the board, everybody. Be right back. There we go. The old, but it is real experience. And hey, why would I feel as deeply about this thing as I feel if it wasn't true or real? I mean, my gosh, you have no idea the depth of emotion and feeling I have about this thing. I can't imagine that anyone in the world could ever feel the feeling that I'm feeling without the thing that they're feeling it about being a real thing. And that's the trick of OCD. It gets you to believe that garbage. It convinces you that that's a true statement. Now, I can prove it wrong very simply by go to a horror film and watch people in the audience who know they're in a movie jump out of their seats when somebody pops out and has a knife and, chases somebody or something like that. What they're experiencing isn't real, but they're sure feeling it. Okay. OCD is a movie in your head that you're having the same reaction to. That's how I would look at that. Can OCD come up when you are feeling fine? Of course. I will be feeling fine and not anxious, but then I will get intrusive thoughts. Yes. Because all of us have thoughts like that, no matter how we're feeling. There's always thoughts popping into our head all the time. For people without OCD, they don't identify them as intrusive. For people with OCD, most of the thoughts that pop in their head, they don't identify as intrusive unless they're about the theme of the OCD, and then they do identify them as intrusive. Most of us, on the other hand, just don't give a crap about the things that pop into our head because most of us just see them as stupid and ridiculous, and who cares? Okay. So, of course, there's always things popping in our head. We have noisy brains. They're always throwing stuff out there at us. They're either reacting to a smell or a sound or something that goes on, and it triggers memories or thoughts or whatever it might. Just the way that it is. That's how it goes. Okay? It's just how it goes. How do I stop internal shakes, which I think are related to anxiety associated with OCD? Well, I guess I don't know what an internal shake is, but I've heard this one before. So I've heard people who have said to me or to people I've supervised, I know I'm shaking really bad, and yet anyone watching them doesn't see any shaking whatsoever. So that might be this idea of internal shaking, where even if I'm not physically shaking, I'm creating the sensation internally of shaking, which could be related to some kind of self-stimulation. We see that this happens. Children do this sometimes, where they'll just kind of shake back and forth, or they may flap their hands or different things like that as a self-stimming thing. Maybe they do that because it feels good, and maybe they do that as a distraction to something else. So, Anish, I would wonder if yours is a distraction from something, or is it just done because it feels good and you just keep trying to do something to feel good instead of feel what OCD brings about. So that'd be something to think about. Mason, hey Mason, can I give any ERP tips for fear of having false memories? I'm afraid of having them. When I get them, I'm afraid they are true. All right. So let me point out a couple of interesting things just in the way that you said this. When I get a false memory, which means then you're acknowledging that it's a false memory, and then you say, I'm afraid that they are true, which again acknowledges that they're false, because you wouldn't be afraid something was true if it wasn't a false thing, right? If it was true, you would just know it to be true. But here you say you're afraid of it to be true, and that means that you know that it's not true. So that's number one. Number two, what I would say is that, let's say you have a false memory of, oh, maybe last night when I heard about that hit and run, it might have been me. So then I want you to make sure that you get in your car and you drive through that intersection where the hit and run was that you heard about, because you're worried it might have been you. And now what if they get you on camera or something like that? So I'd say, well, just go it, expose yourself to the experience, and learn that you can handle that kind of thing. So it really depend on what are kind of the issues about false memories. Well, I'm afraid that maybe when I was at the mall, I might have slapped somebody. All right, well, go to the mall and I want you to purposely think about slapping everybody you see while you're at the mall and walk around doing that and sit with that experience and learning that you can handle those things. That would be the kind of stuff. So what would be the exposure and response prevention? Acknowledge what the false memory is, expose yourself as much as possible to situations that are similar to it. And what's the response prevention? Not continuously then assess and check to see if the thing actually came true, but to do it as a one-time thing and be done with it and move on. That would be where I would take people. All right. Nicholas. A lot of ROCD today, man. People's relationships are rough this week. With ROCD is talking about future goals. Let's see. I'm getting old here. Flirting, discussing happy moments, texting, reassurance seeking. Do I need to stop texting her or leave the relationship? Just trying to figure out exposures. Wow. Well, that's a big question. I mean, boy, talk about some alternatives. Should I stop texting my girlfriend or dump her? I mean, boy, there might be several steps in the middle. I'm just throwing that out there for a moment for all of you, but there could be theoretically 9,483 different things you could do than just one or the other of those things. I mean, just as a ballpark kind of figure for that. So there's nothing wrong with talking about happy memories or flirting or anything. But isn't it interesting? Because people who are in relationships where there isn't ROCD will do these types of things and just see them as part of a relationship. But people with ROCD will wonder, well, what's the nefarious underlying reason and consideration for doing such a thing? And does it mean that I'm seeking reassurance and maybe I don't really want to be in this relationship because now I have to wonder and find out if there are true, real reasons for me to be in this relationship. And if I don't find enough of them, maybe that means that I should dump her or text her, whichever. I mean, one or the other, really. I mean, it's one or both. Now, I'm going to go to the board, put a third thing on the board for the night, and then we'll chat about it. All right, I wrote the word normal. And why can other people experience these normal things, but when I experiencing them, then it's the rabbit hole of OCD. Well, because again, OCD never allows for something to just be what it is. There always has to be some nefarious, underlying, bad, awful, horrible thing that goes along with it, right? Bow down to nefarious, right? Take a look at everything in how can I take this beautiful moment and dump it on its ass and make it the worst thing possible. Oh, I know. Have OCD. That would be a great way to do that. Oh, hun, look at this picture. Remember that day? Wasn't it great? It would be a normal conversation, quote unquote normal. And here's how that would be OCD. Oh, hun, look at this picture. Wasn't that great? Parentheses. But I don't know that we always feel that same way about each other now. And boy, that was the day. And that's probably the day that we should look up as being the greatest day of our relationship. And now that every day isn't seeming to be the greatest day of our relationship, does that mean that we're not doing enough in our relationship to make it as great as we possibly can? And maybe we should just take a moment to pause and think about what are some of the things that we could do to make this even a better thing than it already is. Because I mean, I'd like to think it is already great, but maybe you don't think it's great. Now, if you don't think it's as great as I think it's great, then maybe that means there's something about things that are going on here that we really do need to talk talk about, because what if we're not in the same way of this relationship with each other? I mean, what if I'm into it like 98%, you're only 96%, and now we have a difference in the way that we're going to approach our relationship? But boy, that just feels wrong that we should be like, I mean, shouldn't we both be 100%? And now that we think about that, we should both be 100%, and I'm 2%, you're 4% away from that. What does that mean? That we've not allowed ourselves to be 100% about it. And I just don't know if we can be with each other anymore, because I think there might be somebody out there in the world who could be 100% for me. And if I don't find that person, then am I really short selling myself? And maybe I'm doing a disservice to you too, because I should be 100% into you, even though it's only 98%. And so maybe instead of texting each other, we should dump each other so that we could both go out, find that 100% person, and find the happiness that both of us truly deserve. Does that sound familiar to anyone? Maybe a conversation you've had like 9,000 times in your own head with yourself, possibly. What do you think? Mm-hmm. Hopefully that makes some sense, because that's the way it looks, right? That's the way it goes. All right, let's jump around a little bit here. How do I stop? Oh, here we go. There's another one, GM. See, I already got it on the board. How do I stop? And again, I'm just going to say to you, GM, even though you say here, how do I stop replaying nights out from the past and filling in gaps with the worst case scenario? These false memories won't stop trying to sneak into my brain. We don't stop. We learn how to live with. And we then get to a point of not caring anymore. Why does it matter if OCD does these things? Why must you pay any attention to it whatsoever? If you already know that this is what OCD does, then you've already figured it out, and you know how absolutely predictable it is. It would be kind of like this, go back to the Peanuts gang, Linus and Lucy and Peppermint Patty, and Lucy's holding the football, and Charlie Brown every single time is shocked. Oh my, I can't believe Lucy picked up the football and didn't let me kick it. That's what a question like, how do I stop this thought from happening, reminds me of. Because it's almost as if everyone is shocked by the fact that OCD has thrown another false memory into the mix. But what if this one were true? But what if this one turns out to really be real? Oh my gosh. They're all Lucy pulling the football. It's the same trick every single time, and you fall for it 100% of the time and are shocked that it happened every single time. When in reality, what I want you to do is to go, yeah, I kind of knew that was coming. I mean, boy, if there was a spot for OCD to grab, it was that one right there. And boy, it sure did. Look what it came up with this time. Obviously, though, I knew it was coming, so I'm not surprised by it whatsoever. And actually, I find it kind of laughable that OCD came up with that, because there probably were 10 other things it could have done that might have even been worse than that. But that seems to be the one it picked tonight. I mean, wouldn't that be a great way to look at OCD? Hey, OCD, you are the most predictable thing in the entire world. I don't understand why I have to be afraid of something that I already know is going to go down this path, because I already know it's going to do it. Right? Or be like Charlie Brown and Lucy and be shocked every single time she pulls the football away, because you were just hoping that this time she would leave it there, or you were just hoping that this time OCD would just leave this situation alone. I mean, can't OCD just once leave something alone? Nope. Mm-mm. Can't my tinnitus just stop for like 5 minutes? No. Mm-mm. Not the way it works. So what do we do instead? We learn to live with it. We learn to not care about it, and we move on. That is what we do. Okay. Is it normal to feel like I don't know how I feel about things, as in I don't know what thoughts and feelings to believe? Well, if OCD's nickname is the doubting disorder, OCD would lead you to have doubt about how you feel about anything all the time. Yeah, but what if you should have felt different than that? And and what if that wasn't the right way to feel about that? And what if there was a better way to feel about that? I mean, everyone in the world has those thoughts, right? Those are normal and natural. OCD throws them on steroids, right? That's what it does. But that's just the way it goes. So, right? That's how it is. So, we know that, and we can learn that we can live with that. That becomes our goal in the whole experience, right? That's the way that we do it. That's just what we have to do. All right. Let's look some more. How do you explain OCD to Hispanic or Asian parents? Well, last week, Jasmine, we had Asian therapist on, and we did a whole discussion about that last week. And then next month for our Diversity Manners series, we will have Hispanic and Latino therapists on. So I hope you will watch that. That is the third Wednesday of the month that we always do our Diversity Matters webinar. So I look forward to having you listen to that. How do you know? Wait, hold on. I'm gonna go write that one down too. Hold on. One moment, everybody. One moment. It's in green. It might not show up as well, but it says, "How do you know?" on there. All right. All right. Uh, another wonderful OCD question. How do I know if blank? You'll never 100% know, will you? Ooh, doesn't that hurt? Doesn't that just feel awful? I mean, OCD rages against that one, right? OCD hates that one. OCD thinks that's the worst thing in the world because OCD says, unacceptable. I am the doubting disorder, and there may be no doubt. Although, because I am the doubting disorder, all I will do is doubt everything. So, even if you give me the most perfect, wonderful, awesome answer in the world, I'm still going to doubt it. But then I'm going to be mad at you for not giving me the most perfect, awesome, wonderful answer in the world and overcoming the doubt. But by the fact that I am the doubting disorder, you can never overcome the doubt that I put into you. But I still command that you find me the most perfect answer that you can find and give me an answer that I won't be able to doubt, though you'll never be able to do that because I am the doubting disorder. Sound about right? Anyone? Raise your hand on that one. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, let's go back to that one. How do you know you're not actually in denial about your real feelings, and that's why you're having thoughts you're repressing? Why does it matter? Why not just go live your life with the feelings that you're feeling and see how it goes? Test it out, right? That's what we would want. I like this one. I'm just going to pop this one up because I think this is fun. Is it bad to just stop giving a turd that I have OCD, or is that the goal? That is the goal. Congratulations. Wonderful. Yes, there we are. That is the goal. I like it. Oh, we've got another. I'm just going to show all the turd emojis. I do a Bob Wiley sometimes to take a vacation from my problems. As in, what about Bob? I give myself breaks to not give a turd. Then I get back to work. That's lovely. Good job, Be Not Afraid. That's what we would like people to do. Okay. I think that's great. By the way, tonight's webinar brought to you by NoCD, NoCD downloadable app that you can get in Google Play or iOS. We have teletherapy. We have therapy tools. We have lots of stuff for you. Download that app. Get on our community. Largest online community of OCD in the world. We hope to see you there. Can I talk about chest pain and OCD? Sure. Very simple. The likelihood will be that if you don't do one of your compulsions, you might start to feel anxious. One of the ways that you can feel anxious is to experience chest pain, along with many other the panic-like symptoms, like maybe difficulty breathing, derealization, depersonalization. You might feel choking sensations. You might feel kind of dizzy or lightheaded. You might feel faint, all sorts of things that could happen in a panic attack. So it's not uncommon that you would have something like that. One of the things that we can do is something called certain types of exposures, which are called interoceptive exposures. You do exposures to various bodily sensations and teach people how to handle those sensations. So I have people run in place to kind of get that shortness of breath feeling, or hyperventilate, breathe through a straw to get that feeling of they can't get enough air, maybe choking or gasping sensations, spin people in a chair to get the dizziness, maybe push-ups to do chest tightening, and get all of those things going so that they learn, I can handle those experiences. That's what we want. Every time I hear a sad song or see a number like 13, I think something bad will happen. Last month, I was listening to a song named Fast Car, and 2 weeks later, my uncle died by a car accident. Okay. Well, we can find coincidences anywhere. Coincidences. Boy, I just mumbled that word. We can find coincidences everywhere. Now, Andy, I feel sorry, very much so, that your uncle died in a car accident. But that song came out when I was in high school. So I'm wondering how many people have been killed by that song. How many other people have been killed by the fact that that song played in their car, or that song came on and was heard by someone and then it caused someone else to die. So I believe it was Tracy Chapman who came out with that song. I'm wondering if all of us should do a class action lawsuit against her for writing the song Fast Car, because obviously it harms people. Or by sheer coincidence, you heard a song called Fast Car, and 2 weeks later, sadly, your uncle died in a car accident. Okay. If there was a song called I Got Cancer, and then 2 weeks later you were diagnosed with cancer, would it be the fault of the song? Or if there was a song about heart attacks and then someone you knew died of a heart attack, would it be because of the song. And I would contend that it would be coincidences that these things occur. I've gotten in my car many times and hoped, who knows why, now and then, probably because I treat people who have driving issues and things. So now and then I get in my car and I actually think to myself, I hope I don't get into a car accident today. One day I did think that, but then I did get in a car accident. Someone hit my car that day. So was that because I thought, I hope no one hits my car today, that I got in the car accident? Or did I just happen to get in a car accident and it was a coincidental experience? I'd go with that, personally. But OCD doesn't like coincidence. OCD likes to find meaning in things and put things together and weave things together. And OCD says there is no coincidence. There's only this, which caused this, which made that, which caused that, which turned into this, which became that, and then that happened. And that's OCD, right? Not coincidence. Everything has meaning. Everything has purpose. Everything causes everything. Everything's related. And your job is to figure out what that relation is so that you don't let that ever happen again. Courtney asks, how do I accept uncertainty about a certain worry? She thinks she needs to figure it out. Well, Courtney, I'm going to do to you what I've done numerous times on this fun little webinar that we do here through NoCD. Courtney, since you don't want to accept uncertainty, please sign over the title of your car to me and send me the keys. Courtney, you never have 100% certainty when you're driving your car that you will actually get to where you want to go or that you will actually even make it there alive, right? So, Courtney, you already know how to accept uncertainty because you accept it every single day of your life. Walking up and down the stairs accepts a level of uncertainty that someday you might fall down the stairs, but you do it anyway. So, Courtney, if you don't want any uncertainty in your life, please send your car to me via NoCD, and I will remove all the uncertainty that you have, at least about driving, from your life, and that should help you get to a little bit better feeling of certainty. Because now you'll never have to worry about if you're going to make it where you're going to go or not, because you'll never drive anymore. Or, Courtney, apply the fact that you accept uncertainty in all of your life to the one thing that you say that you can't accept uncertainty about, because you already absolutely know how to accept uncertainty. You do it all the time. Okay. When I do get intrusive thoughts, I don't focus on the content of the thought anymore and just let the sensation, urge, and anxiety be there. Excellent. Keep doing that. Sounds wonderful. That's what we want. Gina Flanagan's here tonight. Hello, Gina. Let's see. How do I do ERP if you have a fear of germs about everything and freak out if every time I feel like my hands are dirty, I have to use my hand sanitizer? Well, there's a time to use and a time not to use these very things, right? So if you're just around your house, why would you ever need to use hand sanitizer around your house? By the way, everyone, I'm gonna announce something to all of you. I'm gonna share a fun story. I'm old enough to have been born prior to hand sanitizer. Now, how I lived through that time pre-hand sanitizer is beyond me. I mean, obviously a miracle that I am still alive today, having never as a child utilized a hand sanitizing product of any form. But probably about 15 or 20 years ago, the OCD conference, which, if anyone's ever interested, the International OCD Foundation does a yearly conference. It's wonderful. Check it out. iocdf.org. The OCD conference was at the same convention center as the makers of a certain type of hand sanitizer, which is funny because the makers of the hand sanitizer thought this was the greatest thing they'd ever experienced in their life. Thousands of people with OCD that we can hand out free samples to and get hooked onto hand sanitizer. And we in the OCD community were like, well, this was poor planning, wasn't it? I mean, this sure didn't work out the way we really thought this was going to go. What the heck is going on here? So at one point, I find myself on an elevator with one of the executives of one of these companies. And I broke protocol. I spoke to someone I had never met before on an elevator. And I said to this woman who had her name tag on with her, titles and, all the different things that come on your lanyards these days and stuff. And I said, I just have one question for you. Does this stuff really work? And she just stood there, didn't say anything. And as we got to the floor that she was going to exit the elevator, and it's slowing down and slowing down, and right before the doors open, she turns and she looks at me, and I swear to you, this is a true story. She turns and she looks at me, and she said to me, "We have a great marketing team, don't we?" And then she walked off of the elevator. So I have a quote that I really like. I had it up here. Where is it? Hold on. Is it over here? Yes, there it is. And it's, I'll paraphrase it because it's around the monitor. I can't really see the whole thing, but it says, America doesn't lead the world in the production of automobiles or steel or other manufactured goods. America leads the world in the systematic production and distribution of anxiety. That's from Eric Severed. He was a news anchor back in the 60s and 70s. I've always liked that quote because I think that we are amazingly good at scaring ourselves and believing advertising. Like, I love watching advertising. I am a huge fan of it. Maybe in another life I'd go into advertising. Who knows? But I love advertising because in many ways, advertising makes us all look like we're idiots. You ever watch somebody try to open up a bag of chips on an advertising and the chips explode everywhere, or they try to open a bottle and they drop it and it crashes on the floor? I mean, advertising is basically designed to say the way things are now are very difficult and you look like a moron when you do them. But wait, now we have this new product designed to do, and it's going to make your life so much better. And we fall for these things all the time. Well, OCD is constantly throwing maybe some advertising at us, and we fall for it all the time. We believe everything it says is true, and if we just follow it, our life will be easier and better. OCD might be the greatest advertising campaign ever in the history of the world. And sadly, you keep buying what it's selling. But what it's selling is crap and lies and deceit and falsehoods. But you keep buying it, hoping this is going to be the time that everything's going to turn out okay. What should I do if I'm getting extremely anxious about philosophical and existential thoughts? I don't know if it's OCD or not, or if I should go to a therapist. Well, I'd say a therapist will be the person who can help you start to figure some of that out. So that would be my suggestion right off the bat, just so you know. Dr. McGrath, what is the best book that you have for OCD that you can recommend for someone else? Is that an acceptable thing to ask here? Sure. Well, to say that, I might have to do a little shameless self-promotion, but the OCD Answer Book by yours truly, by the way, just so you know, look at that handsome fella on the back right there on that back cover. Yeah, he's a looker, isn't he? Yeah. The OCD Answer Book was really designed specifically for people with OCD to be able to hand it to someone else who doesn't understand what OCD is and say, here, this should explain everything for you. It's all written in questions and answers, and each answer is about, a paragraph or two long. So hopefully that's a helpful book for you, and might be able to give you the information that you need. So GM says, I'll have a regular night out with my friends. Then the day after, weeks after, even months or years after, my brain will ruminate and worry if anything bad happened and I just can't remember. Yep. That sounds like OCD. What if? All right, let's go back to the what if experience. Yeah, but what if? Today we don't talk to each other as much. And I wonder if maybe that night I might have done something wrong or inappropriate. This was big also. OCD loves to catch on if there's anything, in the world of social media or political movements or anything. And so this has been big lately of, going into people's past and what if. And so OCD will jump on that and go, well, maybe I should do a whole moral inventory of my entire past too, to see if maybe I at some point in time have ever done anything inappropriate there. And then what kind of amends or things do I have to do, or how should I punish myself over the fact that I could have done some of these things? And isn't that just bad and awful and horrible of me for potentially having done something like that? That's pretty OCD. Lisa wins the coolest comment tonight, by the way. And Kaylee, thank you for putting the link to the book up as well. Lisa says, I have that book and it's great. I loaned it out to my mom to read, but she hasn't read it yet. How dare your mom hasn't read it yet, though, Lisa? She's missing just a Pulitzer Prize winning book. No, it didn't win a Pulitzer. I'm totally kidding about that. It didn't. It should have, obviously, but it didn't. Dr. Patrick, I keep obsessing about experiencing the fear, doubt, and uncertainty and experiencing that discomfort. Sorry, popped for a second. So I thought I'd check how I experience discomfort to let you know, so I know how to in the future. Well, it's not about knowing exactly how to experience fear and discomfort. It's about being able just to accept the fact that you do. I mean, I don't have here is the formula as the way to do that, right? So what I want you to kind of do is to recognize that there's not a model for how to do it. It's more about how can you just do it. Does that make sense? I don't tell people that this is the formula to be uncomfortable in. I just say we're here to learn how to just be with being uncomfortable. So I hope that helps. Sliz says the OCD Answer Book did not discuss our OCD. You're right, Sliz. And the reason for that is we weren't really looking at our OCD back then, right, when I wrote it. So it's really more of a new thing. So that is why. There are a couple of books. There's one book, Loving Someone with OCD, which I've suggested can be a really helpful experience. A really helpful book. I'm reading someone else's comments. A really helpful book. I can't do two things at once, it appears, but hand sanitizer. Oh, go back to Lisa. Okay. Hand sanitizer really helps me to not feel like my hands are so dirty, but it is my go-to clutch, and I probably use way too much. Yeah. So I would want to sit with the idea that I can learn how to handle feeling uncomfortable. I can learn that it's okay to feel kind of dirty, right? All right. Well, everyone, it's been a joy to once again spend an hour with all of you discussing obsessive compulsive disorder. Download the NoCD app, get on our community, check it out. Try out our teletherapy service if you're in need of therapy. Read the story of Stephen Smith, our founder. Thanks in the background to our support tonight, Kaylee Smith. Always appreciated, Kaylee. Doing a great job. No one sees her, but she's there. I'm telling you, she's there. She's wonderful. And everyone, we'll see you again in a week. Have a good one, everybody.